pretty quickly I got to my goal weight and then became viciously addicted to drugs and alcohol. Substance and drinking was so much more efficacious and less calorie dense.
I obsessed over it enough to lie, cheat, and steal just to get my fix.
A lot of, cocaine and pills and pretty much whatever you had right when I turned 18.
Little does the public know that Josh Peck from Drake and Josh was actually on drugs while filming the kids show. The former Nickelodeon star struggled with substances, and after leaving the limelight, everything went downhill. So let's get into it. I feel like in 2024, we're finally coming to understand what these child stars went through working on set, being at Nickelodeon, and much more. Josh Peck has been open about his struggles. Josh Peck is getting candid about his spiral into addiction as a teenager, while on the canceled podcast with Tana and Brooke, which actually I just saw Brooke at a movie premiere for Twisters. I spoke to her a little bit. She gave me a little bit of tea, but that's for a different video. Josh has described himself as a morbidly obese teen, and he revealed that he thought losing more than 125 pounds would fix all of his problems. However, to cope with the pressures of fame, family issues, and other turmoil, he soon turned to drugs and alcohol instead, like many child stars do. Josh has spoken before about his struggles with his weight because he was on a show as a kid. He was alongside Drake, who's always been, thin as a twig. So then he just is a bigger guy and he looks bigger and he's on camera. Which, doesn't camera add weight? Can we bring back that theory? Camera adds weight, doesn't it? Behind the scenes, Josh continued to struggle with his weight. He wore Spanx during filming and went on an 18-month diet and a workout plan when he was 17. That is so sad. Not him wearing Spanx, poor Josh, but he lost 100 pounds and he reached his goal weight of 180 pounds, which is actually what I weigh right now. 185. He said a lot of people go through awkward teenage years, and when they're through it, they burn their yearbooks and swear their family to secrecy. But my awkward teenage years are in reruns. That's kind of sad that he's constantly reminded of this past self, of this version of Josh that he doesn't like. He says, at 17, I lost all this weight, but I was like the same head, but in a different body. I thought, I'm at the finish line. I did it. Now I just don't have to worry about anything. So he thought, again, losing the weight, which I think a lot of people have that experience. You think if you check one box that everything is great, and it's never really like that.
The same head with a new body, right? And sort of substance and drinking was so much more efficacious and less calorie dense. So I think it's no surprise why it sort of seemed like a good second option for me. And I was also 19 and supremely stupid and just thought that I was being typical and young. I mean, my life up until that point, I'd had so much responsibility, and I wanted that responsibility. I wanted to be able to help my household and help support my single mom who basically gave up her life for me. And I had all the cash and prizes of a good life, but there was a part of me that just wanted to be a typical kid and make mistakes and not worry about being in the spotlight.
I can't imagine being a child star and trying to figure myself out at the same time, because your reputation is almost established for you through this character. Everyone knows he has this character. You're pretending to be this character. I mean, shoot, in Josh's case, the character was also named Josh. So I feel like you would have an identity crisis. He said losing the weight did not solve his daddy issues and other issues that plagued him his entire life. He says, I have to party now because I spent my teenage years alphabetizing my DVDs and not going and making out with people. So now it's time. So he kind of went through his rebellious era. And I guess it was kind of like, we didn't really see a lot of it. It wasn't like a Miley Cyrus situation. He says, I just spent 4 years being a total cliche. I think the most insidious or corrosive moment of my life was the first time I tried drugs, and I was 17. He said, I'm lying in bed that night and I realized what a great time I had that night, feeling charming, handsome, and I was having great conversations and talking to girls. So his first introduction into drugs was so great that it wasn't a good, I guess it was a good experience, but it wasn't great for the long run, because he's like, oh shoot, I could get used to this, like feeling confident, feeling like my problems were taken care of, which is how a lot of people fall into addiction. At some point, Josh's substance abuse was catching up with him. He was underweight with the dark circles around his eyes. His personal relationships were suffering, and he was running out of money too. And while Josh does have his problems at home and his problems with his father, I think it'd be ignorant to ignore the problems that Nickelodeon had placed on him. Like this headline reads, Josh Peck hid drug abuse, insecurities, and trauma behind his funny guy image. Now he's coming clean. I love how this article is written, so I'm going to read it verbatim. Josh Peck is racing through LA's Coldwater Canyon at 8 a.m., driving well over the speed limit after yet another night of drugs and alcohol. For the past year, addiction has overtaken his life. Over the span of 10 minutes, 7 people will call the police to complain about Josh's driving. A police car begins to close in on Josh, who thinks of the consequences of getting arrested and having his mug shot everywhere. He continues speeding his way out of Beverly Hills and escapes the police. Josh, damn. I did not expect that from you. Clearly, this is not the Josh that fans are used to. For 4 years, he struggled with addictions that went largely unnoticed. Here's Josh talking a little bit more about his specific drug use.
What kind of drugs did you do?
I did them all.
Cocaine?
Oh, yeah.
Heroin?
No.
Okay,
but
well, that's good because that could have been the end of it if you went there.
I did, I mostly, it was a lot of, cocaine and pills and pretty much whatever
How
you
old?
had. Right when I turned 18.
18. So
Yeah.
you finally get this new lust for life. You're thinner. You want to be this actor. You're excited. You love the way people are looking at you differently.
Mm-hmm.
And you fucking throw it into the fucking shit. You just throw the whole thing down the drain. And by doing all these drugs, and you're hanging out with the wrong crowd.
Yeah, well, those kids, like the ones who were going to the clubs, I was like, take me.
I could totally see Josh getting sucked into this new life. He's finally getting praised. I'm sure people love him because he's that kid from the show and now he's lost all this weight and he's like finally talking to girls. And I even see people here in LA who don't have strong willpower. I'm not saying I have the strongest, but I like my sleep. I like to go home. I want to go eat. I'm not trying to stay up and do like drugs, please, girl. Like I got a video, I got a film. But I can see like how so many other people, and including Josh, could get sucked into it. And it's a really toxic cycle. And then a lot of people fail out here and they either end up homeless or they end up going home. Josh recognizes that he simply traded one addiction, food, for another, drugs and alcohol. He says, I can look back on that now and go, ooh, that was the moment where I said, this is who I am. So he even noticed the shift in himself to where he was like, oh, no, I'm not going to go and eat something. I'm going to go and have a drink. That will make me feel better.
I wanted to check in with people like me and younger and say, listen, I know you might have grown up with me. I know you might have thought when you were watching me from your couch that everything was perfect. And in many ways it was. But there was also this extra level. And if you're having your own struggles, that's okay, too.
You describe how powerful your food addiction eventually became. Let's take a listen.
I obsessed over it enough to lie, cheat, and steal just to get my fix. If that meant sneaking into your family's snack drawer when I came over, like an addict rummaging through a stranger's medicine cabinet, so be it.
That's so sad to think about it. I think that there needs to be more conversation around eating. I mean, with the whole Ozempic wave, everything has just been completely shaken up. I feel like body positivity, like, are people even talking about that anymore? Are we just all Ozempic'd out? I mean, we need to talk about these eating issues because they're still very prevalent. Josh said that I realized that whether my life was beyond my wildest dreams or a total mess, it didn't change the temperature of what was going on in my mind. I knew that nothing in the outside world would make me feel whole. That's so depressing. It sounds like someone who needs therapy, which I'm sure he's in therapy. We advocate for therapy over here. I've got therapy today, actually. Oof.
Pretty quickly, I got to my goal weight and then became viciously addicted to drugs and alcohol, which
Really?
took over the next 4 years of my life.
And how did your mom respond to that? Was she heartbroken?
She was like, you always overdo it.
So she knew you were doing these drugs.
Oh, yeah.
And she didn't. She wasn't angry or upset, or
Oh, yeah. She was heartbroken. Terrified.
she was.
Yeah, every day for 4 years.
Back in the day, I remember David Dobrik used to make vlogs, and he was like, I think is he still relevant? I don't know. But he would make vlogs, and I remember seeing like Josh pop up in them, and I was like, oh wow, I haven't seen Josh in a while. There was light on the other end for Josh because he ended up getting sober at the age of 21, which is interesting because that's like the age when you can start drinking. So that's when he like got sober. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, because like, wasn't he talking about going to the clubs? I guess he was going to the clubs underage. He said there were too many close calls, too many rides across the lawn of the Beverly Hills Hotel, too many trips to the ER where I convinced them it was anxiety making my heart do that. On February 15th, 2008, Josh attended the first of what would become many Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and he's been sober since then. So thank God he was able to find support in that kind of group. I mean, those groups are really helpful to to so many people, so thank God we have them. Josh said experimenting with drugs and alcohol gave him an outlet for his emotional pain. It was really a buffet. I had this illusion of becoming more confident and attractive when I was partaking. I was trying to quiet that voice that woke me up every morning and told me I wasn't enough, which must be hard, especially after his work had ended. Like, what do you really do with yourself? You're going back to like normal life, and you had a normal life in years, so you don't know how to operate. But it wasn't like Josh fell off right after Drake and Josh. He was also partaking when he was on the show. This person was quoted saying, "You mean to tell me all this time my kids were watching your chunky little butt while you were high? We loved you. I got my kids watching a white crackhead." Oh my God, not people being, that's aggressive. Here's a clip of Josh talking a little bit more about his experience using when he was 18.
Yeah, I thought that I had just made it like right before the buzzer. Like, you did it. Like, you're going to have the chance at living life as a thin person. And because that was what I've always resisted, being defined by like, that's what I hate. You know, I don't hate it. It is what it is now. But like, I hated being the kid actor, the child actor, because I knew that triggered in people's brains. Like, for every Zendaya or Jodie Foster, there were 1,000 other kids that just, you know, completely nosedived in front of the public. And so I'm like, I don't want to be in that class. I just want to be an actor. I don't want to be the fat, funny guy. I just want to be an actor amongst actors.
Since leaving the Nickelodeon network, Josh hasn't had too many big opportunities. He shared there were a few people who would say things like, "You were funnier when you were fat," or "Stop trying so hard." So as he lost the weight, he didn't really he kind of lost opportunities. He gained some confidence, but he didn't fix his problems. And clearly, drugs and alcohol did not help, so hopefully that's a lesson for people to take away. Josh clarified that he wasn't high all of the time, but he was during the production of seasons 3 and 4 of Drake and Josh. Thankfully, Josh has gotten clean. He has a kid, he has a family, he has so much to live for, and I hope that anyone who's watching this and struggling with your own issues, you can see that there's hope, even in Josh Peck's story, but also in plenty more. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Kudos to Josh for being so open about everything. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in a new one soon. Bye, guys.